Hello parents, this is a brief summary of the parent information meeting that was hosted earlier regarding the band program at Jackson Heights Middle School. So I wanted to shatter some myths about band if you were unfamiliar with the band program at Jackson Heights or middle school bands that exist in Seminole County. One is that band interferes with sports. Although we do have an occasional conflict, it's actually really rare for students that are in sports to not be able to do the activities that are in band. It's very rare. So we have many students in band that also participate in competitive sports, cheerleading, dance, scouts, you name it. Band requires prior knowledge of instruments and reading music. Normally that is not the case. Most of our students come in with little or no experience doing anything musically other than what they had in music class in elementary school. Band requires private lessons on an instrument. Also normally not the case. There are a few exceptions to this. However, most students that come in will not require private lessons on their instrument. Band requires extra weekly practice after school. That does not happen for beginning band. We have a few extra practices that happen for our top groups at the school in preparation for our annual band assessment, and they're actually very few. Band is expensive. Well, it definitely can be, but we definitely try to make it as budgetary as we possibly can. We try to minimize what we can to make it possible for any student to be able to take our class. Another one is if my child has or is getting braces, they cannot participate. This isn't true. We have students that come in with braces every year. We have students that get braces every year, so we're never going to tell a student never to get braces or that they can't be in band because of braces. The biggest thing to consider, though, is if your child is getting braces at any point on their instrument, that they are getting them where they have at least a month prior to a performance. So if they have a performance in the beginning of December, you would want to make sure that they don't get braces on around Thanksgiving. They would want to get it on no sooner than about a month before a performance, so they have time to adjust. Band uses drums, guitar, and other string instruments, so we use traditional wind instruments. We do not use guitar in the regular band class. We do not use other string instruments in band class either. If my child played piano, violin, or other non-band instrument, they cannot be involved with band. We do have students that come into band every year that have had years of piano or another string instrument, and they're able to easily migrate to another band instrument with no problem. All instruments are school purchased or owned. Some of them are, some of them are not. We'll talk about that in a little bit. All instruments are maintained by the school. Some of them are, and some of them are not, and we'll talk about that as well. Other daily school equipment like printers, paper, ink are all school provided. Most of that stuff is actually not provided, especially in the last 2 years. We've received many different cuts in our program, so there's almost nothing that we have to provide ourselves as the band program with our Band Boosters Association. Beginning band requires no experience, so most students that come into band into their first year of band are in beginning band. We use traditional wind band instruments. There are only 2 required performances that the students have after school. One is considered a winter concert, one's considered a spring concert. There's an optional event called Solo Ensemble. So we have 2 performances. One is normally in early December, and the spring one is normally in late April. These are the only required after-school activities for beginning band. Solo Ensemble is an optional event. It's an individual assessment sponsored through the Florida Bandmasters Association. It occurs in late February. Students prepare a state-prescribed solo piece with piano accompaniment. It is an optional event. We typically have maybe about 12 to 15 beginners that do that every year. It really depends on how eager the students are and the level that they have accomplished in that kind of just past mid-year point. There's a required band uniform. It is a blue polo style band shirt, as you see the student wearing in the picture. There is a specific shoe that we have the students get. It's called a bandeau shoe. And families obtain on their own black dress pants and black dress socks. These are used for both concerts. If they participate in solo ensemble, they can use that in solo ensemble as well. There are required materials that the students have to have, so once an instrument selection has happened that we'll talk about very soon, there's an approved brand, make, and model of each instrument. There's usually an instrument care kit used for cleaning and maintaining the instrument, and a folding wire music stand, as you see that this student has here. That's mainly used for at-home practice. It's rare that they'll actually need it for concerts, but possible, but usually it's just so they have something to practice at home. There's a 3-ring binder. You can see that on the child's music stand here too, that they will have in school every day. It's a 1-inch binder with clear page plastic protectors, and a band book that's provided by the school, and they should have pencils every day, and they need to have access to a metronome, whether it's a traditional metronome or an app that's on a phone or tablet. The big it about this particular information meeting was about selecting a band instrument. So what we do for each family that comes into the band program at Jackson Heights is we do a band instrument test drive, just like we would typically test drive a car to see how it feels, if it's something that we want to drive on a regular basis. We're kind of doing that with instruments. Typically takes about an hour. It's an evaluation. We go through all available instruments at the time, and we are identifying specific physical characteristics and natural tendencies. So not everybody has a face to play clarinet. Not everybody has a face to play trumpet. Some students will have a face they can do both. So every student that comes in is different, so we try to narrow that down to their best options. If a student is attending summer band camp, we have a testing day just for those students attending band camp, exclusively registered for campers, and it's kind of on a first come, first serve basis. That instrument test drive that I do here at school typically uses 4 families at a time. It takes about an hour. Most families prefer that to the testing day for the camp. So there are a couple ways that families can obtain an actual band instrument. So one way is an instrument rental, either through a local band music store or the school band boosters, depending on the instrument. Some could be a purchase, although that is normally discouraged right away. It's usually promoted as the students get a little bit more experience on their instrument, but that would be either new or used from a variety of trusted sources. And my favorite, the closet treasure, an instrument given to a student from a family or a friend. So the big issue with that is making sure that just it will meet the expectations of what a student would need to be able to play. Many cases, it just maybe needs to be cleaned or serviced by one of our local band repair techs. But it kind of depends on the condition of the instrument, the brand of the instrument, the model, all those kinds of things. So it would require just an inspection from me to make sure that that would suffice. So instruments that are typically taken care of through one of our local approved band music stores is flute, clarinet, trumpet, or trombone. Those are instruments that are typically done through a rental. Those rentals are considered a rent to own, which means the longer you would make those payments over time, eventually you would own that instrument. I typically don't recommend that in the long run. You will end up paying more for that instrument in the long run. However, to get started with, it is a very, very safe and efficient way to get started on a band instrument. Instruments that are owned by the school, which means they are rented through our band boosters as a maintenance fee, is oboe and bassoon. Those are 2 double reed instruments in the woodwind family. French horn, euphonium, and tuba. Now for the brass, which are French horn, euphonium, and tuba, typically what happens is the student would have an instrument that stays at home, and then they have an instrument that stays here at school. They would own their own mouthpiece and bring the mouthpiece back and forth. So they're not actually needing to bring that instrument back and forth each day. They have a take-home instrument just for practice, and then they have one that stays here at school, which is typically shared with at least one other student from another class period. Now, the nice part about that is that they don't have to bring that instrument back and forth. However, the instruments that stay here at school are usually the nicer ones. The ones at home are usually ones that are maybe a little bit more older, look like they have more mileage on it. So it's not shiny and as pretty as the one that stays here at school, but it is functional. It's just so they have something that they can practice on at school. At home. However, they usually will always prefer the one that they get to use here at school. And then there's the MAP insurance that a music store, if you're doing a rental through the music store, that they would require you to get. It's usually required for all instruments rented from those local stores. It covers basic wear and tear as well as accident protection. So that stands for maintenance and accident protection. So we want to avoid these kinds of things from happening. Of course, this would be a very, very horrible scenario. However, if you were renting one of those instruments from the local music store, that MAP insurance would actually cover most of the cost of replacing that instrument. That's why in middle school, having that MAP insurance is actually a really, really good thing, and why if it's an instrument that is typically rented through a local store, starting off with a music rental is actually really, really good, because there's always lots of little accidents that can happen with middle schoolers who are first-timers on their instrument. There are other accessories that go along with many of our instruments. So for example, most instruments all use some kind of mouthpiece. If it's a woodwind instrument like clarinet, you see the student playing here in the picture, then there's a specific ligature and reeds. Most of the instruments have a care kit. For the brass instruments, there's valve or key oil or rotary oil for French horns. And for trombones, there's slide cream, water spray. These are things that they need to have to keep the appropriate parts moving or clean. Usually comes in a small kit that is a purchase. Those are some elements might need to be replaced over time, but usually what they have for that care kit for the year usually will last them through that first year for the most part. So a reliable band music store is one that provides that MAP insurance, offers that rent-to-own plan, rents the trusted name brand instruments that are on our approved list, and is familiar with the band program at Jackson Heights, and they offer all the correct accessories. So there are very specific brands, makes, models of all of those things, and so it's very important to make sure that we have students on very, very good stuff. So what I like to say is we want to avoid purchasing or renting from stores that would be the same place that you would buy other amenities that you need for your household, like paper products, clothes, underwear, socks. Those are not the places that we want to go to get our music equipment for band class. Also, if we're shopping online, everybody's favorite website that's named after a rainforest, it's very hard to pinpoint the correct things to get on sites like that. So we want to usually avoid all those, because even though we might look at something that looks very inexpensive and looks like it's the right thing, oftentimes those instruments are poorly constructed. They often are out of tune with themselves. They sometimes produce the incorrect pitches, and many repair people around town will not work on those because they're so cheaply made, and the tools that they use to do those repairs will actually damage those instruments. So if we're purchasing online, it'd be very wise to make sure that you provide that information to me as the teacher before you actually commit to a purchase of anything online, to make sure you're not getting something scary or something that's going to be less than appropriate quality. We do have a percussion class. It uses traditional percussion instruments, so we actually don't call it drums. We typically limit that to only 6 beginners per year, and those 6 beginners typically come in with experience. It's one of the few things that does require experience. We'll talk about that in a minute. And all the students in that class, we have 2nd year and 3rd year students in that class, and they are divided into specific groups. And when it comes to our concerts, for our symphonic concert and beginning bands, we divide those students or separate them based on their abilities and the needs for the band parts of all 3 of those groups. All of the students in the percussion class participate in solo ensemble. This does require previous knowledge of reading music, and usually requires formal piano or percussion lessons needed to do that instrument test drive for percussion. So if you're signing up for an instrument test drive and your student is interested in this percussion class and they meet those requirements of having that formal experience, you want to make sure that you're choosing one that actually says percussion test drive. If they haven't had that kind of experience before, this is not the class for them. It would be extremely difficult for them to keep up with the pace of that class. It moves at a faster pace, and because of the experience and the advanced levels of multiple students in that group, it would be very difficult for someone who does not have that experience to be able to fall in and be able to keep up with that class, both musically and academically. If you do the percussion test drive, it doesn't guarantee acceptance into that class. This is a special elective, so it doesn't show up on a regular schedule request form. We do encourage those students who are interested in this percussion class who might sign up for that test drive to also sign up for a regular test drive on all the wind instruments in case that this class ends up not being one that they're accepted into. You can sign up for the instrument test drives using this QR code. I'll provide the link also in this video in the description. So there are some practice expectations for our students. At first, it's very minimal. We try to work on very routines of procedures, things that we'll do a lot of the same thing for a week or two in a row before we move on to make sure that we have lots of practice with it. So 5 to 10 minutes daily at first is perfectly fine. But it is a matter of establishing a routine of doing that. If we're only doing 5 minutes one day per week, we're not going to make progress. Okay, so it's a matter of making it a daily habit. Just like if we're making other aspects of homework a daily habit, or other things that we're doing outside or things around the house, we just want to make this one of those daily things. Little by little, that will increase throughout the year as they work on more skills and harder music. It's important for them to have a quiet area or room at their house or apartment to make sure that they can be not distracted. And again, we want to organize a regular daily routine for practice is key. It's more about the routine than the actual time. In those practice times that they're doing outside of class, it's always important to make sure they're reviewing recent activities done in class. Always try something new, going on beyond where we are in their band book, not waiting for us to get to it in class, but actually venturing on their own a little bit at a time, so that when we do it in class or introduce it in class, they're already somewhat familiar with it. It's always best to use a mirror and a metronome when they're practicing at home. Also, in addition to that, I open up the band room every day before school at about 8:15 a.m. And we do have a large number of students that just prefer to come in before school and do a lot of that individual practice on their own in our band room. It's also a good time for them to just double check things with me if they want extra help, or if they need to make up any assignments, or get any extra things that they need to do, or work on things that they need to turn in. If there's an assignment they need to turn in, any of those are very helpful. Utilizing practice MP3s or any videos linked on eCampus or QR codes that I provide them on any pages or supplement worksheets is also important. It's important for them to learn how to ask for help and be okay asking for help. And as I just briefly said, the band room is open every day for practice and help by 8:15 a.m. Oftentimes it's also open during lunch. I do have passes for students that they can keep in their band binder so they can be allowed into the band hallway and band room during those times. So our grading policy is broken up into the following categories. We already talked about the 2 performances. It's for 40% of their grade. If it's a quarter in the school year that they don't have that concert, they automatically receive that 40% of the grade. 20% is daily supplies plus what we call the PC grade. The PC grade stands for practice and consistency, meaning that there is evidence that they're working on things outside of class, consistency, that they're able to consistently keep up with the activities that we're working on in class. So if they're struggling on something, it's the getting them to encourage to be working on those more, and that they're able to kind of get over those small speed bumps along the way. But if they're avoiding tasks, if they're avoiding practice, they're going to get further and further behind. They're going to have a hard time keeping up We're going to have a hard time staying consistent. So again, it goes back to establishing those daily routines. So as long as they're keeping up with those things, and that's part of that 20% as well. Any homework that we give is usually worksheets out of their band book. We only have less than a dozen of those throughout the whole school year. Usually involves some kind of worksheet and a video lesson and some short video assignment that they do at the end. Oftentimes there's even tutorials to help them figure that out as well, and they turn those in on eCampus. Any quizzes or practice quizzes or written tests is another 15%. Any other playing quiz tests or assignments is the remaining 15%. These usually fall into a category that we call pass-offs. They usually get some kind of sheet of tasks that they need to complete in some kind of progressive order. Sometimes I refer to these as a mission goals card, and then they have those individual tasks, and as they complete those, that goes towards that 15%. I'm very big on communication. I use email very often. I do have different distribution lists, and I also use skyward reminders that I blast out to families. The distribution list could be broken down by instrument or broken down by grade, and sometimes I'm sending them both ways, whether it's the distribution list or skyward reminder. I use a lot of automated notifications, so very, very quick email things with just a system that I designed, that if a student did really well one day, I might just click, get a quick email, hey, they did really well today on this thing, or oh, they forgot their band book at home, click, automatic email, hey, just so you know, they didn't have their band book today. That will slightly lower their grade for their supplies for the week, something like that. So I have lots of automated emails for little things just to make sure that I'm always communicating with families. If you want to communicate with me, email is always the best way. You can also send a note in with your child, and always leave a phone number in case I have the opportunity to call you back. My email is listed there on the bottom of the screen. This year, some details regarding our summer band camp. We have a testing day on May 13th. This is reserved more so for Lawton Childs students, as I will not be here for that particular testing day at Lawton Childs. May 22nd is a testing day for both schools. These occur at Hagerty High School. The first day for beginners for the band camp is May 29th. After that May 29th, the first full week is June 1st through the 5th. All of that takes place at Hagerty High School. And then we have a half week after that for the second week, and that runs from June 8th to June 10th, also at Hagerty High School. On the last day of the camp, we have a camp concert at 1 p.m. We certainly hope that if your child is coming into beginning band, that they're able to participate in this camp. It is not required, but strongly encouraged. It is definitely not a deal breaker for a student being able to do band or not if they cannot do the camp, but it is a very positive and enriching experience, especially if they're coming from 5th grade. It's a good transitional experience for them to get to know us and also get to know other kids who are going to be in their band class in the fall. We have a great Band Boosters Association. You can join our Facebook page by scanning the QR code on the screen. They help with a lot of physical and financial aspects of the band program. The executive board meets once a month. Our Band Boosters assist with all of the physical and financial aspects of what we do, and even with volunteers. So if that's something that you're interested in, please make sure that you're able to reach out to our Band Booster president, and we will have some volunteer sign-up stuff at the beginning of the school year that you can also sign up for as well. Thank you. Hopefully this was an informative session for you. Please feel free to email me if you have further questions. The most important thing is to get your child in for a band instrument test drive so they have the opportunity to play test all the available instruments to them.